Krishna Mahamantra. In his childhood, when the Lord was Christ, he would stop immediately upon hearing the holy names of Krishna and Hari. All the friendly ladies who came to see the Lord would chant the holy names, Hari Hari, as soon as the Lord would cry. He induced everyone to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra anywhere, and during his Pauganda age, he became a serious student and also taught disciples. In this way, he used to explain the holy name of Krishna. When teaching a course in grammar, Vyakara, and explaining the notes, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught his disciples the glories of the Lord. Krishna. All explanations culminated in Krishna, and his disciples would understand them very easily. Thus, his influence was wonderful. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a student, he asked whomever he met to chant the Hare Krishna Maha. In this way, he inundated the whole town of Navadvip with the chanting of Hare Krishna. Just prior to his youthhood, he began the Sankirtan movement. Day and night he used to dance in ecstasy with his devotees. The Sankirtan movement went on from one part of the town to another, as the Lord wandered everywhere performing kirtan. In this way, he inundated the whole world by distributing love of Godhead. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lived in the Navadvip area for 24 years, and he induced every person to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and thus merge in love of Krishna. For his remaining 24 years, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after accepting the renounced order of life, stayed at Jagannath Puri with his devotees. So this is like a synopsis, right? For 6 of these 24 years in Nilachala, that is also another name for Jagannath Puri, he distributed love of Godhead by always chanting and for those who are lazy with your legs, just remind you. Okay, beginning from Cape Comorin and extending through Bengal to Vrindavan during these 6 years, he toured all of India, chanting, dancing, and distributing love of Krishna. The activities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his travels after he accepted sannyas are his principal past. His activities during his remaining 18 years are called Antya Leela, or the final portion of his life. For 6 of those 18 years, he continuously stayed in Jagannath Puri. He regularly performed kirtan, inducing all the devotees to love Krishna.
Easily.
Simply by chanting and dancing. For the remaining 12 years he stayed in Jagannath Puri. He taught everyone how to taste the transcendental mellow of ecstasy of love of Krishna by tasting it himself. Day and night, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt separation from Krishna. Manifesting symptoms of this separation, he cried and talked very inconsistently like a madman. As Srimati Radharani talked inconsistently when she met Uddhava, so also Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relished both day and such ecstatic talk in the mood of Srimati Radharani. The Lord used to read the books of Vidyapati, Jaydev, and Chandidas, relishing their songs with his confidential associates like Shri R.R. Ramananda Rai and S.D. Sardam G. Goswami. In separation from Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relished all these ecstatic activities, and thus he fulfilled his own desires. The pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are unlimited. How much can a small living entity elaborate about these transcendental? There's Sheshanag Ananta, personally were to make the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya into codes, even with his thousands of mouths, there is no possibility that he could find their limit. Devotees like Swarup Damodar and Murari Gupta have recorded all the principal pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the forms of notes after deliberate consideration. Hare Krishna. So we'll kind of end the reading there, maybe a little bit more. The point is that the Lord had many biographers, just like our Srila Prabhupada. He has a lot of biographers. Most of you have read the Leelamrita by Satsvarup Maharaj and all his assistants on that one. The other day I was on Bloor Street, and inside a window of a used bookstore there was on top of a pile, SWAMI in a Strange Land. Yogeshwara had written that book. It's an excellent book. It's really fantastic about Prabhupada. The point is there are many people have written about him. A lot of you know Shamasundar's text and Adi, what's his name, Guru Das, who came here last year, and so many more, Yamuna Devi. Just there's and the first woman to write anything about Prabhupada was Mahamaya. Anybody know her? She's a god sister. And the book is called Prabhupada is Coming. It's really nice. Okay, so Mahaprabhu was born on February the 18th, 1486, and by the lunar calendar, I was very fortunate that in 1978 was my first visit to India, and it was a lunar eclipse on that day. So everybody went to the Ganga, went waist high in the Ganga. We chanted Hari Hari, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. We were chanting our Gayatris. And I remember at that time, perhaps some of you have heard about Professor Joseph T. O'Connell from the University of Toronto. He was an incredible hero who fought up for us when we had a lot of propaganda against us. That propaganda was created by some parents of the devotees and some members of the Jewish community, because it was Jewish boys and girls that were joining the Hare Krishna movement, honestly. If you check it out, in New York, there was a great migration that went to New York during the Russian Revolution. So a lot of those people had children, and they had children, and some of their descendants, or let's say some of their offspring, they became devotees. They're Russian, Jewish Vaishnavas. Yeah, and there's a lot of them. There's still quite a few of them around. Then later on, installments of other devotees came from different backgrounds, people of a Christian background. And of course, the Hindu community started to really get strong in the 80s, and but not, so it's spread out all over the world. The Lord was born, and it was noted by Nilambar Chakravarti, who's like Garga Muni. Everybody knows Garga Muni. He was the family priest for Nanda Maharaj, and he calculated who Krishna was when they weren't quite sure. It was confirmed that he was the son of Vasudeva and not Nanda. That kind of shocked the world a little bit. And also that not just by astrological calculations, but also by symptoms of the body that would indicate that Mahaprabhu was Krishna, that he was God himself, just like in the case of Krishna. There were auspicious signs on the bottom of his feet, and this was all determined by, or observed by Nilambar Chakravarti. And one of the reasons that the Mishra family, that's Jagannath Mishra, Sachimata, they moved a little bit west is because he wanted to, that is Jagannath Mishra, wanted to be trained by Nilambar Chakravarti in the sciences of astrology and astronomy, right? Anyways, he was the family priest that determined that here is God. And it was very obvious by the signs on his hands at the end of his feet. And yeah, when people first got to know him as a child, he was like just brilliant. He was like a child prodigy, like just a genius, a scholar. As we mentioned earlier on, he was born by a neem tree, which is still there in Navadvip. How many people have been by that neem tree? Very good. And you probably will pick up some of the leaves of that tree. Don't dare taking any piece off the tree unless if a branch falls down. But, so he was called Nimai by Advaitacharya's wife. Her name is Sita Thakurani. And his parents named him Vishvambara, as we mentioned earlier on, which means maintainer of the world. He had an older brother, Vishwarup, but they didn't get to know each other too long because Vishwarup was one of those real serious fellows who took up the spiritual life and took up sannyas. He didn't want to get entangled in this world. He basically left the world, and not that much is known about him, but I just want to tell you, there's one of our devotees, Hari Mohan. He's in Calgary, you know him, and he's quite a scholar. He's on his third book, and that, I believe it's his third book, if not fourth. He's written about the life of Vishwarup and whatever he could gather. And the last time I saw him, he's really serious. You know he is. He hardly laughs. He says, I'm going to make a movie about him. Okay, great. So now, before Mahaprabhu was born, there were lots of girls that came through where they were conceived, and they all died. Every last one of them. We're talking about 8, isn't it? 8, can you imagine? If you're trying to have a family and every one of them dies on you, So it was very, let's say, impactful on the lives of the parents, Mother Sachi and so on. So finally they got a boy and he lived. But then he left. He abandoned the world, basically. He left the world. And then they got Mahaprabhu. Or Vishvambar said, this one we're going to hold on to. We're going to have our eyes on him like a hawk, and we're not going to let him go anywhere. And as soon as they had an opportunity, he said, let's get him married, let's get him chained down. So that's a little bit of that. When he was a child, also he engaged in extraordinary pastimes, one of which resembles the Leela of Krishna. He was in a bunch of earthen pots that are rejected. Bengal is where it's a place of dirt and mud, and it's also the top soil. It's good soil, and sometimes the Ganga, floods, and then when she recedes, then there's a lot of top soil left there. So it's a very fertile area, Does anybody here do you like Bengali sabjis? Like greens? I do. There's nothing like them, honestly. People talk about the rasagula and what are the other ones? Misti dohi. Yeah, and what's the sandesh? Sandesh. Oh my God, to die for. But for me, the Bengali preps are the greens that are mixed together. And Mahaprabhu also personally liked greens. He likes the mixed vegetables, and if something was a little bitter, he also liked that. My understanding too, he liked the bananas, which some of our devotees from Toronto, when they first went to India, they saw the bananas were small like this. Uttama Shlok is the one, and he said, "Oh, they're not bananas; they're beninis." Beninis. Yeah, so Mahaprabhu ate what was common there, and of course he did his travels. But let's go back to the point where he was tucked away playing in the area of, mud and dirt and some rejected earthen pots, terracotta pots. And some people were complaining about that. And you all know the story of Chaitanya, Krishna himself, who ate dirt, and people were complaining about that, his classmates. Balaram in particular, and Yashoda said, "No, I can't believe that." And she questioned him and about that. Well, let me see what's in your mouth. And she opened, or he opened his mouth, and she saw not just earth, dirt, but the earth. And she saw the cosmos. She saw different phases of time. The Virat Rup that we read about in chapter 11 of Bhagavad Gita is what she was seeing, And she was even seeing herself looking into the mouth of the Lord. That's how mystical it became. And, it kind of threw her for a loop. And she thought, this is not my child. This is not my kid. This is God. And then the way it usually works, suddenly the switch goes on, the switch goes off, and actually he's my child. So she's in what we call like a yoga maya. Maya means illusion. And when yoga is the prefix before it, the word before it, it means a spiritual illusion. And just like Yoga Maya was a utility that was used by Krishna himself, when he was born, he spoke to Yoga Maya, his own internal potency. He said, we're going for a trip. And so he talked to her and said, we're going for a trip, and I need your help. I need Yoga Maya to be there for me. So what the beauty that came out of that episode of the Lord eating dirt, he felt that he was totally justified and validated for taking this dirt. And because his logic was, Mom, let's pretend we'll put in modern day context. Mama, whatever. Everything's a transformation of dirt, right? Like you're a transformation. The mridanga is like mridanga. It's like made of dirt. That's what it means. It's a drum of dirt, And unfortunately they break kind of easy. But that's another point. And everything's a transformation of dirt. The tables, the chair, pretty much so much. Here, the carpet. And if you do whack it, probably you'll see the dirt. So you understand what I mean. We were in India, in Vishakhapatnam, and we had one person who played Shukracharya, the guru of Bali, MAHARAJ, and he brought him to life. He was killed by the demigods, and he brought him to life. So this was Shukracharya and Bali were played by African devotees, and they were tempted to do their Zulu little thing. So it was like a sangoma thing, and he'd bang on the stage which had like a carpet on it, and it looked so naturally, like powder was coming out, all this stuff. So, anyways, the beautiful dialogue that took place between Mother Sachi, who's an incarnation of Mother Yashoda, was that you should not eat this dirt. And he was just explaining the Mayavad philosophy. Everything's one. And then she said, yes, that might be true, but we also have to look at it a little deeper. And that she was saying that in a lump of dirt, you can't really carry water, but in a transformation of the dirt, like in a jug, you can carry water. So Mahaprabhu was quite brilliant. He just took notice of this, and he considered, this is really wonderful, thank you. So the whole philosophy of Achincha Bheda Bheda Tattva comes through in that little pastime, And Mahaprabhu was very much a staunch follower, and even remarks are made against Shankaracharya's, philosophy. And what do we hear about? Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Mudamate. You idiots, basically you idiots, worship Govinda. Don't just worship Brahman. Don't just worship the oneness, but worship the individuality and the sameness as one. So there are some religious communities that have actually picked up that phraseology, unity in diversity. It's really quite wonderful when you apply it. Like here we're sitting in a room of, everyone's got different kind of glasses on, but they are glasses. We're all people. We all got men and women here, and yeah, we're all people, but we're different genders. We all have different natures. You know, Amala, Amala, he's got a certain nature, usually smiles, and he doesn't find fault with anybody. And, you know, everyone's got a certain nature that's quite adorable and distinct from each other. And it's all quite wonderful. And when we just did our drama there in India, the Age of Kali, we chose a piece of music where I think some of you had seen the video that we'd done. And we chose this song by Kula Shaker. It's a rock band. Chincha beta beta patra with the guitar. And Achincha means inconceivable. And then simultaneously, one but different. And we have examples of that. Some of the acharyas talk about, like, if we were to go to the lake, you know, you can cup your hands and pick up water, okay? But you can't, hey, Jai, can you swim in this? It's water. It's Lake Ontario. No, you can't, you know, because it's not, the mass isn't there, you know. There's a little portion of it is there, but the mass is not there. So therefore we have to look very clearly at what this actually means, one but different at the same time. As we indicated, he was a great scholar, and he had lots of students, and he taught them that everything is connected to Krishna. Doesn't matter what Sanskrit word you can pick out of the grammar or the dictionary, he will tie it in to Krishna. So that means he was very Krishna conscious, right? That's what it means. Yes, he did get married early. There's a lot we can say here, and but it was the first wife, Vishnupriya. It was Vishnupriya. Lakshmi Priya was the first one. They met at the Ganga. They would meet kind of regularly, and one play that I wrote was called Panchatattva, and so we put a little segment in there where Mahaprabhu was seeing Lakshmi Devi. She's not different from Lakshmi, and her name is Lakshmi Priya, right? So then we had to portray it after he was collecting some water from the river. He'd go back to his home, and the person playing Sachimata, she said, "Mom," he says to her, "Mom, yes, what?" Said, I met someone today. And she says, oh. That's how we portrayed it. So when we did that, there was a little criticism from a god brother who's a sannyasi. Oh, you can't, let those kind of things enter into the Leela. But I mean, really, there was a likeness. There was an attraction by these two people, and it's real, Narayan and Lakshmi, And so you try to portray it in the most clean way possible, but I'm just sharing with you some of the reactions that come about, It's pretty clean, pretty innocent, really. And unfortunately, she died from a snake bite. And, Bengal in that area is known to have cobras there, because wherever there are sugarcane fields, there's probably going to be cobras, right? And wherever there's cobras, you need, what's their competitor there? The mongoose, yeah. So one of the countries I walked through was Fiji, and indentured laborers from India were coming there to work in the sugarcane fields. It was during the time of colonization and make everything a cash crop. It was a very sad part of history, really. And so when they say we better bring some mongooses, because there's going to be the sugarcane, there will be snakes, cobras, but there weren't any cobras. There weren't any cobras there. And it's an island which has hardly anything. In fact, it was quite boring, I like my moose and my bears and, the odd what do you call it, Wolverine, or I like my wildlife. It's got to be, but there you can't find it, not even deer. It was really kind of sad and kind of pathetic. The only predators to the mongoose are human beings. Okay, yes, yeah, they'll fry them up. Okay, so Mahaprabhu. So moving along, he was at that time in Bengal. There was a lot of control. Muslims had moved in, invaders had come in, and they had taken over the admin of the villages. The south wasn't so much taken by the outsiders, but the north was, and still affected to some degree to this day. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he didn't make a big issue about it. In a couple of instances, like Haridas Thakur, he was born in a Muslim family, but his ancestors would have been Hindu for sure, right? Because Islam's only been around for 1,500 years. But no Muslims were allowed to go into the Jagannath Puri temple, right? And Haridas Thakur never made a big issue about it, nor did Mahaprabhu either. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had a long dialogue, which you could read about here in this volume, with Chand Kazi, a Muslim leader, and he was quite kind of a scholar, and they compared notes, Hindu notes to Muslim notes, Hindu notes, like that. And even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kept saying, well, we Hindus do this, you Muslims do that, Mm-hmm. And the conversation is really interesting, especially to do with meat eating, And Mahaprabhu challenged him, Chand Kazi, who was good friends with Nilambar Chakravarti and had some connection there. And Mahaprabhu was challenging him and saying, the cow is your mother, and according to our Vedas, it's like that. The bull is our father, so why do you kill and eat them, right? So the argument that was countered by Chand Kazi was in your Vedas, and he's talking about other yugas, like in Treta Yuga, animals were sacrificed, like horse sacrifice, cow sacrifice even, in fact. So he had, it's not like he pegged Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord presented it like this. Well, in bygone ages, people knew how to do sacrifices. And when they offered an old horse or a cow, it meant that they would enter into fire and they would come out with a rejuvenated body. Can you imagine? You're at a sacrifice and an animal that's kind of forced into, a large fire, and then within minutes comes out like young and rejuvenated, That's pretty awesome. And we don't have those kind of people qualified to do those kind of yajnas. Therefore, it's recommended not to have cow sacrifices, and even it's recommended not even to take sannyas. And anyways, that can, but the Lord did take sannyas still. So it's good to read into these Leela's pastimes and delve deeply into the purports that are given by Srila Prabhupada, so we can understand why these social changes did take place. Why were there exceptions to the rules? It's good to go through that a little bit. And during Mahaprabhu's time, we're quite sure there were Christians at that time. St. Thomas went to India, he converted a lot of people, but we don't hear of his interaction with them. He did interact with Muslims, of course, and Buddhists, and people of the different Vedic schools, different thoughts. He was also a great arguer, just like some people, they like to watch the wrestling matches, and it's like a big, craze, an addiction for a lot of people, and especially the heavyweight championship. And but in Bengal, especially in Nadia district, it's known as a place where you make gamshas, cloth gamshas and lungis and things like that. And they don't even make good dhotis there, forget it, right? But in those days, it was a place for scholars to come to, right? Hence we have Nilambar Chakravarti. These persons brought a richness, to the area. But there were people, we call them scholars. There's Keshava Kashmiri is one example, and Mahaprabhu just crushed him with his scholarliness and taking 100 verses to describe the beauty of the Ganges. And Mahaprabhu, this was all recited by the Pandit, and Mahaprabhu detected, it's a nice poem, but I have a few problems with it. So what do you mean? Problems? Like he's a Digvijay, wherever he went, he could conquer, philosophically. And then Mahaprabhu says, let me explain, let me justify my position here. Verse 64. Okay, let's look at that one. So he just picked out of the hat one verse, and he pulled it apart. And the Pandit was so shocked that anybody could be so meticulous. He almost lost it. He almost was passing, on the spot. Like, how can anybody, do this, humiliate me like this, I've been known all over the world. So, Keshava Kashmiri and others, they surrendered at the Lord's lotus feet. And that's a remark, a symptom that you are a humble man, you are a person of nobility. Let's put it that way. Many other interactions. How many people have gone to Jagannath Puri? Go. Go. And you will see the Gambhira room where he actually was so much caught up in his feelings of separation, he would hurt himself. He'd just scrape his face against the rough floor and or against the wall. And they were very worried about him. And they tried to have security, just like now we have in our temple security guard. Well, they had a security guard for him. And one time he actually just got out of the Gambhira room, which had high walls, and practically, you can't fit through the little hole. And they did whatever they could to protect him, because he was kind of a little bit self-torturous, in a way. They would be looking for him, and oftentimes he'd be found by the water. The Bay of Bengal, he mistook to be the Ganges, and the Ganges oftentimes has a darker tone color, the color of Krishna. So if he'd see anything that would remind him of Krishna, he would be in ecstasy. One time he was found, he was caught in the waves, and he was pulled all the way 30 to 40 kilometers to the famous Konark temple, which is a sun temple. I think it's to the north, and that's where they found him. You know how he got found? The fishermen caught him in the net, and he went berserk. Yeah, so many ecstasies are there. Yeah, isn't that great? Look, he's freaking out. Before I went to India, I spent 4 days in the Netherlands, right? And there's two devotees, Naman and Ritam. They got initiated. One of them is from North India. The other one is from Bengal. But they're really into drama. So one of them, his name is Namacharya, he looks just like Mahaprabhu. In fact, they both work together. They capture him. Like Vishnu, he'll dress up like Vishnu. He looks just like Mahaprabhu with a shaven head. He's got this sort of lips and the big lotus eyes and everything like that. And so they're like thespian devotees. They do all the plays over there now. But there's lots of detailed descriptions about the Lord's form, everything from the head down to the toe. So you might spend a little time reading about that today, just to get a little bit, develop some attachment for him, right? And I'll just confess, one of my favorite art pieces of all time was that limited edition print, which we have at the door at the entrance, just when you come out, and he's kind of like all over the place, like in ecstasies in front of Jagannath. You know the picture? And that was done by a Spanish devotee down there in Miami, and it's very limited edition print. Don't steal it. You'll make lots of money on it maybe one day. So you can say Mahaprabhu was all over the place, and not to be found a lot of times, because he was kind of lost in his bhava, in his ecstasies, in his sentiments. And they are sentiments of Radha. We have to take very literally that verse that is expressed in the Bhagavatam, Krishna Varanyam Tvisha Krishnam, which means that in Kali Yuga, the Lord will appear, but not as a dark Krishna. He'll come as a fair complexion Krishna. He'll have the skin color of Radha, which sometimes is described as molten gold. He'll have the features of Krishna, but he'll have the skin of Radha, the hue of Radha, and her sentiments also. Yeah, so there's a lot to be said about him, and he was a luminary in his time when Europe was going through a renaissance and of changes. Yeah, everybody heard of Martin Luther. He was the first Protestant, right? He was a member of the Roman Church, but he had a lot of issues with it, and he was suggesting changes, and they didn't like that at all. But he was a protester, therefore Protestant, and from there came many other Protestant sects. So many, the Quakers, and the first people from Europe that came to land in the New World. Like the Boston area and all that, Plymouth Rock, they were a bunch of Protestants. They were discriminated against, and they were pretty much in exile. They had to leave. So they went to the New World and started, a new civilization. And, Quaker Oats, have you ever seen the guy with the hats like that? That's a Protestant group, so there's a lot. In one sense, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also a Protestant. He was opposing what the Brahmins were doing at the time, very tantric, very involved in sort of darker arts, and not taking seriously to the practices of pure bhakti. So we credit Mahaprabhu for many things, the philosophy of Achincha Veda Veda Tattva, making a big deal about chanting Hare Krishna, and also taking a non-violent approach against the Chankazi. They didn't come with bullets like if it was a transfer to America. I'm making a big point now here about how Canada doesn't get into guns like America does. So no, even if they didn't even have muskets in those days, but they did have torches, and they did have loud voices. And they went to Chankazi's house. They messed up his garden a little bit, but they were kind of serious that no one should stop the kirtan. So maybe when we're at Eden Center, we can reflect a little bit on the pastime that Mahaprabhu did this. He encouraged his followers to engage in public kirtan. And when there was a disruption by the Chankazi, who broke one of the mridungas, he raised an objection. And so he started the civil disobedience movement, which Gandhi, 400 years later, applied somehow. Took a social stance like that. Let's go at a peaceful demonstration. So anyways, we're at a point where we didn't have really much period for your questions and answers, but it's a little bit of a synopsis. And there's a lot more to be said about Mahaprabhu. I don't think you can, put any restriction. You can't box him in. Like he did that. They tried to do that with the Gambhira room, but they couldn't. He got out. He's magical. My first Back to Godhead magazine was an image of Mahaprabhu in the Jharikand forest. And there was an elephant and deer and tigers, and they were all kind of, gelling. at ease with each other. And, it reminded me of like Francis of Assisi kind of figure who was very close to the animals. They all related to him. Yeah. So any questions or comments, Bruce, or anything past time you want to share quickly? Because we have to go to invisible prashadam. Yes, go ahead.
Maharaj, you were mentioning that we should read about Mahaprabhu today. Would you like to suggest something specific from Chaitanya Charitamrita or for any others?
But you can take your pick. What would be advisable is to look at his birth and what leads up to his birth and his childhood pastimes. They're very endearing. Yeah. Yesterday, Nityananda was talking a little bit about, weren't you? Two main reasons why the Lord came. Am I correct about that? Two main reasons for the Lord's coming. So it was, the Lord was contemplating, what is it about Radha that she sees in me? And while he was thinking like that and trying to understand, somebody way in the background was calling his name loudly, Krishna, you got to come and help. The world's falling apart. And that plea came from Advaita Acharya, simply saying, help, H-E-L-P, help. I need somebody. Help, not just anybody. Help, I need someone. Help. Do any of you know what I'm talking about, or am I just old?
The second one.
It's an old Beatles song, Help. Okay, thank you. Anybody else for further elaborations? Some of us are tired right now. Some of us are cold. Isn't it cold? Is something being done about that?
I tried asking Kumar Prabhu.
Okay.
He said, I don't know, close the door.
That wasn't too warm. But one thing we can say about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is a very warm personality, and he accepted everybody.
Who's the personality in the back?
Oh, that was his assistant, Kala Krishna? Was Kala Krishna Das? Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, and he saw this and he said, "Whoa, what's going on here?" Yeah. He was his assistant. He helped him. He was kind of like a secretary. And, he didn't have his cell phone with him, but Mahaprabhu had beads in one hand. He had to keep count of the beads, and he had a kamandalu, and sometimes the rod is described. The sannyas rod. Yeah, but this could have been any of us when we met devotees. Whoa! Like you'll see on because we're not very visible in Toronto.
Yeah.
We're not like Montreal where they're always out there. And we could be more visible. But when these high schoolers come out and say, "What's that?" We'll shock them. And we like to shock people. We have somebody in our administration here, the name is Shaka. Start the shock culture. Anything? Well, what is moonrise, by the way?
6:57.
Okay, so some of you are really going to look at your watch at that time.
Yeah. Which is,
I was told to give a class at 6:30, from 6:30, 6:55. So after, the stampede will come. Anything else, Bruce? No? We are knowing everything. Extraordinary personality. Honest, he is. And there was in North America, there was also a lot of frustrations amongst the nations. They were fighting with each other. They're not always peace-loving people. I haven't found it anywhere. And there was a need for a change. And somebody came by the name of Hiawatha. He's kind of like a Chaitanya figure. He was just like, let's stop fighting, let's try to resolve, let's start loving. So those kind of luminaries, they pop up in history and annals of history where they come and do something. Yeah, so that's it. It's a very grainy production here. Yeah. So how many people think that when you do kirtan, you don't need to dance? Do you have anybody here? How many people are committed to dancing during kirtan?
2 hands.
2 hands, and then your leg, the other leg. Okay, then, and why? Because, yeah. And that finishes up the party. In fact, one of our sannyasis, quite known for kirtan, they said, this happened in South Africa about 10 years ago. And they said, Maharaj, where there's dance, because we got everybody dancing, that completes the Sankirtan. It's not enough to just sit and sing. You have to dance, because that's when you're really surrendering everything, right? Your whole body. And usually I tell people, well, if somebody's standing there's a Prabhu, do you see that pillar over there and that one over there? They're sufficient for holding up the building. So then they think about it a little bit. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, don't be a transcendental wallflower. Get up there and dance. Dance up a storm for the Lord. Surrender means that, Like full surrender means just give your body loose. Let it go. Yes, bro.
We're already dancing on the tunes of so many people in the world. Might as well dance to the tune of Krishna's name.
Yeah, exactly, And, moonwalk for Krishna. There's a lot of clean dancing that goes on out there. A lot of it is kind of licentious. Today's modern dance, that when you say dance, then that's what it means in the modern day context. It means to be sexy. It doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be. Like folk dances are not like that. Even some of the, the North Indian dances, they're not like that. They're just like fun, country style, like a square dance. It's, we should do it. And even Dandiya dances aren't like that, shouldn't be. Yes, bro.
Maharaj, Prabhupada had to take sannyas, and here Mahaprabhu also had to take sannyas. How it feels when you feel that you are prepared for this thing? Is it like you lose taste completely in the material world, or to lose the taste in material world to get completely detached, everyone acquires it?
Well, usually it means if somebody is taking sannyas, it's not like they're eager to. Says, I want to take sannyas. Guruji Maharaj, I have to take sannyas. I said, why? Because I get the Maha plate. Or I don't want to take responsibility for my family anymore. These are like bad. In fact, when Prabhupada came here in '76, there was a case where some people lost abandoned their ordination as a sannyasi. And so there was some discussions about that. But anyways, we prescribe, like for almost everybody, when you're young, you're a brahmachari, brahmacharini. You just study as much as you can, be as brahminical as you can possibly be, and then it's recommended that in your 20s you settle down, and then you learn sacrifice. You learn how to surrender like anything to the other person and to the little bambinos that come thereafter. You learn how to serve others, right? And then, it's not very often, but it does happen on occasion that later on, late 50s, 60s, whatever, you take sannyas. if the children are, can look after the wife like that. But it's rare. It's very rare. Mahaprabhu took his sannyas when he was 24. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya looked at him and said, too young. Said, let me train you up. And then he started to speak from the Bhagavatam, the whole 12 cantos, and Mahaprabhu was sitting there tolerating it all. Because his explanations had a Mayavad flavor. And Sarvabhauma came to him. You've been sitting there day after day, not doing anything. And Mahaprabhu was just trying to be a little respectful. And but he indicated that your explanations are clouded. And of course this got him upset, Sarvabhauma. How could anybody dare talk to me like that? When I'm actually acting like the guru. Anyways, he had to turn around. I mean, he converted and transformed. And that's what Mahaprabhu did. He had the ability to turn people's lives around to something positive. Yeah, that's it. So he's explaining, and the Lord is sort of staring in the air. It's just, the mood is, he's off the wall. We have that painting upstairs, right?
Yes.
That's done by Tri Bhuvaneshwari. She's a local girl here. And she took paintings that were done by BBT artists. She made them better than what they were in the books. Yes, any other Leelas you want to pull out there? Anything? I guess not. But we do have to, we should, meeting adjourned, right? So, yeah. Okay, Prabhu, so let's take our right hands. Put them over here. Line it up with the nose. Take the left hand, line it up with the nose again. Move forward. Panchakalpatarupyascha kripasandhibhyeva patitanam bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah.